It's doing that
Is it?
spinning thing.
Right,
So
okay.
just there.
Right, okay, what's our normal opening? Okay, look, we've got a new article we've put up, and obviously we've got a conference coming up, or one that's been up, and that's all attached on the side, along with something we're doing on Monday with someone else. But primarily, this particular article, I've been asked by people to keep it short, particularly Evan, and I remember about 4 articles ago, I did do an article of less than 2,000 words. You do remember that, Evan, don't you? Oh, he's gone. Okay, this one doesn't quite fit into that category. It's actually over 7,000 words, not 7,500. That's the good news, a little less than that. So, Evan explaining to me that people aren't going to read this. So, look, I don't expect anyone to read it, but if you do, thank you for doing it. What it's actually about, I'll hold this up, all these. He collects all this information, and what they are, they're either papers like this one, an actual paper itself, or reports on papers like this one, if I can hold it up properly. And when I decided to do this, I'd been putting this aside for a while. I'd always been at the front of it. I've spoken about this one before, and I thought it was a real good starting point. And it talks about the fact there are 9 species of humans once walked the earth. Now there's just one. Did we kill the rest? And I thought it was a good place to start from because it's such a simplistic and ignorant approach towards human evolution. I thought it would be a very good starting point to try and find the truth. And the premise of this one is that there were 9 species of humans once walking the earth. Only one's left. What happened to them? Simple. Humans had more intelligence, were more devious and manipulative, their words he used, not mine, and they killed them all. And it really paints, and by the way, he said those people who talk about the noble savages are wrong. They were more vicious than we were, even in the Second World War, the First World War, when we annihilated and genocide. All that stuff was nothing compared to what we were like before. We're just hot-wired, primarily according to this gentleman, to kill, to murder, and that's what we did. He makes it clear the other species were not the protagonists, and they were peaceful, and we just came along and wiped them all out because that's just what we do. To put it very simply, the other 8 hominins were spear and axe fodder. That's all they were. Just something there for us to while away in our idle hours to kill until there were none left. It's a bit like the dodos. We just kept killing them until there was none left, and then oh well, they're gone now. We'll talk about them. And that's primarily how he sees that. And I thought, oh God, that is just such a pathetic idea. It's the survival of the fittest. But I've got to make a point. When I was a kid, there were Homo sapiens and another brutish sort of thing called Neanderthals that sort of bent a bit and was hairy, and they all had the same face, a bit monkey-like. And that was it. And from that, 2010, it was still that. From 2010 till now, it's gone from a count of 2 hominins wandering around the planet to 9 there. And since, by the way, that one's wrong. It's now, there's 3 more that have turned up, 2 this year. In fact, it's nearly like a constant parade of more hominins turning up. And that's what we found when we started to put these articles together. And what we found was, as we go through there was a recurring theme of 2 things. Number one were the Denisovans. Okay? And basically what we found in the papers there, that all that's known about them is a couple of bones found in a cave, and alternately a jawbone that was found in Siberia. In the Tibetan plateau, where the other ones were found in Siberia. And the interesting part was, from Siberia they extracted the mitochondrial DNA, but from the one in Tibet they couldn't. It was exhausted. So what they went for is a collagen that's found in the teeth. I analysed that and came up with a date of 160,000. Now what they said from this, and the papers all agree to certain things, that Denisovans have been around for at least 765,000 years, and they were found in the plains in Europe then, wandering with Neanderthals. Now you've got to understand that all of the evolutionists will say the same thing, that the Denisovans, the Neanderthals, and the Homo sapiens all came from a common mummy and daddy monkey. And somehow or other they gave beings that had sutures and different sort of faces, and all the other monkey daddies and mummies at that time made normal monkeys and apes and whatever. That's what's supposed to have happened. So primarily, if we've got the Denisovans wandering around the countryside 760,000 years ago, then Homo sapiens are also there at that stage. Now, the theory is that the Homo sapiens came out of Africa 150 to 250,000 years ago. But here we are in Europe, and two different papers both acknowledge a Denisovan date of 765,000 years. And we've seen that paper, and it's incredibly strong, and no one's argued it. In fact, it's been accepted. But what they don't think through is, well, if you accept that, then the story about out of Africa coming out, sometimes they even say 300,000 years. Well, it's wrong because they're in Europe, double, nearly 3 times more than that. So that's what started to come out of the studies we did there. And then what took place is they went back into the Denisovan cave again. And what they found is, number one, they found, and remember, going back to the first article, all we're doing is wiping them out. They found one Denisovan there, a child, that was part Denisovan, part Neanderthal. They found a pinky bone, and they found a couple of other bones from there, but they found no evidence of Homo sapiens sapien. Now remember, ladies and gentlemen, that's an issue, and I'll tell you why. Because I'm 4.7% Denisovan, and original people have got the highest reading, can go from 3 up to 6, and I'm one of the highest that's been read. Which means the original people, Homo sapiens, were dealing with Denisovans in every shape and form, up to and including making babies. There's no warfare here, that's a common one. And we've also got Denisovans and Neanderthal making babies, so there's no warfare there also. Now what was interesting was, they went back into that cave, and they said, okay, what about if the Homo sapiens were there? Because we've got evidence with the original people in Australia. And what they did was they sampled the soil, and they've only been doing this for 5 years, and they sampled around about 720 samples and found that 24% had modern human DNA there. What that meant was that cave was hosting Denisovans and Neanderthals and Homo sapiens all at the same time. So I'm starting to get a bit of a story here about what's going on about this separation between the 3 species. I'm not seeing it. So we started to find there was a story that took place there, and then it gets really interesting. Then what happens is, and by the way, this person that wrote the first article, we need to introduce the ones they've missed out now. Now the first one comes from China, and it comes from a head that Professor Chris Stringer calls a huge head, a massive head. It is such a big head. They couldn't get there. They couldn't leave that alone. It was found in China, was found in a well, wrapped in a well, and they analysed it. The Chinese believe it's a new species. Chris Stringer says, well, it probably could be, but it may be a form of Denisovan. And since we have so little Denisovan, we can't make a definitive judgment. But what is interesting is 2 things. Number one, not only has it got a massive head, it's also bigger than ours. Here's a picture of it. This comes from China. It's bigger than ours. What is it, 1,430 mils. It's much larger than our head. It can fit inside. It's 130,000 years old at least. And there are distinct links there to Homo sapiens there. But it's smarter. And the other part they found was because the head was so massive, they've calculated it was more robust, taller and stronger than Homo sapiens. So tell me, how did this magic weapon we had, according to this first article about us wiping them down, how do you wipe out someone that's bigger than you, that's stronger than you, and is smarter than you? What makes you think you can outwit them when they've got the capacity to be smarter and stronger than you? Now, the big issue with that was, this is brand new, and it doesn't fit, because things, when you go back, the skulls are supposed to be smaller, not bigger. Now remember, Neanderthals have a bigger skull than Homo sapiens. Remember also, Denisovans have a larger skull than Homo sapiens. And also, ladies and gentlemen, if I can now show you, here is a new addition. They thought this was a Neanderthal, and it's this one here. I'll hold it up to you now. And it has massive eyes and a sloped forehead. Very, very ancient. But look at the size of the skull. Now I'm going to hold next to it the skull of a Homo sapiens, sapien. We'll put the two together like that. And this one here is much bigger. This is called Homo heidelbergensis. And this one here has got a massive skull, but look at the eyebrows on this. It looks so ancient. And it's got a fairly receding forehead, whereas the other one hasn't. This looks to be more ancient in so many ways, but is not. This one here, he's got massive eyebrows too, but not the same sort of being as this one. A different nose, quite a few things that are different. And this one doesn't fit. It's got a massive head. Now the one they found in Israel, and this is where it gets interesting, ladies and gentlemen, and we spoke about that one too. That one, ladies and gentlemen, is fascinating for a different reason. According to the people investigating the one in Israel, and we've got an article about that, it's more related to the Neanderthal line. But what I love about this one is what they've said very simply is, it doesn't have a chin. Now, come on, what's going on with this family of Homo sapiens? We've got the Homo sapiens that are part of a bigger family. They're all our kin. And they're starting to look so different from us, and we're all supposed to come from the same mum and dad. I mean, it was supposed to be 3 coming from the mum and dad. And when they did this, they didn't include all the little people, and there's 3 species of them. They certainly didn't include heidelbergensis. And now, this new one without the chin, it's got no chin. That's what they kept saying, and I haven't seen pictures of it. It only came out a couple of days ago. It's in Israel, and they're looking at it at the moment. It's of the Neanderthal line, no chin. And there, the professor is saying, oh, we think it's pre-Neanderthal. Like the ancestor of Neanderthal, it's pre-Neanderthal, it's pre-Homo sapien, it's also pre-Denisovan, because they're supposed to come from the same missing link. And that would be the missing link, because if it's pre-Neanderthal, it's pre the other two also. They're making this up as they go along. Now, what's missed in this story, and what we picked up at the very start of our article, is this. We asked a question, and we've used these articles, and all 7 of them, to gather together an answer. And the question was this. Why is it there are 7 billion people on the planet, and none of them have the same face? Fortunately, there's no one on this planet today that has the same face as me, which is a blessing for them and a curse for me. But why is that? And I make the point. Look at the face and the body of a zebra. They're all roughly the same. Look at a horse, roughly the same. Look at any of that group there. A mule, a donkey, all roughly the same. Now you get variations, of course, generally, but specifically, here's the things that are the same. They basically eat the same food. They basically have the same height for males and females. They are generally built the same. There are small variations. There might be a windscreen at the back of one that the other one doesn't have, but the car is basically the same model. There's 7 billion faces on this planet, and none are the same. Not only that, people can run at a speed of 40 k's or 4 k's. They can eat anything. Well, I've got a different fingerprint pattern to anyone else on this planet. My retina pattern is different to anyone else, and apparently my heartbeat rhythm is too. We've all got different shaped faces, we've got different hair, and really we've got different everything. And all we've got to begin with is 2 eyes, 1 nose, a mouth, a chin, and a forehead. Well, hang on. No chin. I'll leave that out. So what we've got is 2 eyes, 1 nose, a mouth, and a forehead. Well, hang on for a sec, ladies and gentlemen. Here's the clue. We've got to leave the forehead out, because I want to show you the next one we've got. And we've seen 4 of these in Australia, and I'm going to hold it to you sideways first. Here is a model of, and there's the face there, that's the way it should be held, of what we found. We call them the flat-headed people. Now have a look at that as a forehead. Now I know the other one sloped back a little bit, but this is ridiculous. Look at the slope on the back of that brain. 95% of that brain is below the eyes. That's what you're looking at, ladies and gentlemen, face on. Look at the forehead behind there, compare it to Homo sapien. But I'm going to show you something else. What we have done is we managed to get a complete skull made of this, of that particular model there. And here is here's the skull we've got there. I'll hold that across like that a bit. And here is the Homo sapien alongside. Now look at the two faces, ladies and gentlemen. Check out the eyes of the other one. Look at the face. Look at the jaw. Look at the shape of the nose. Look where the nose begins. What do they have in common? What I can tell you is this one here, the one I'm holding up here that's been remade, that was buried. That should be this one I'm holding up. That one was buried in a burial site next to a Homo sapiens sapien, 1 metre away. They were buried together. We found 4 of these in Australia. Now what we found, ladies and gentlemen, is look at the back of this. It's got a flask shape at the back, but look for the suture at the back. There isn't one. And if you're wondering why they didn't do that, is I'll show you the model from inside here. This is a model of the actual piece that was found. This is the skull that was given to me. And when you look at the back here, down here, where there should be a suture running down, this is the middle, there's none. And if you go further down, there's a crack there. That's just a crack where that broke. There's no suture there. Our assumption is this being has either 2 or no sutures, which means it can't be, under any conditions, a hominin. Its brain is much bigger and bulbous at the back. It's wider, it's longer. This is 17 centimetres at the back and the other one is 13. That's the sapien one. And its widest point is in the middle. This being was buried next to in a burial site. I've been at the burial site. We have pictures of it and articles up we've put up before and you can look at them all. It was buried next to Homo sapiens sapiens alongside them, but it is not us. I mean, for God's sake, nothing like us. This humerus bone they've got, mine's 30. Its humerus bone was 43 and there was no elbow joint, which means it's 45, 46 minimum. Gibbon's are 35. There's no being on the planet that has an arm that long. And why would you have eyes that are 46% bigger than sapien eyes unless it's only for nighttime running? This thing wasn't made for this country, or for this planet, to be honest. And the other part is these arms that are so long are incredibly thin, no wider than an inch. They weren't made for here. What I'm saying is, when we look through this and we try to resolve the question is why is it we have so many different faces? The answer is simple. We don't fit into any other pattern. And by the way, when you see pictures of Neanderthals, you'll find the face is always the same. When you see pictures of Australopithecus, they've taken Lucy's face, which we've got, but I didn't bring down there, and all Australopithecus look the same. It's the way they do it. When you draw a picture of a lion, the face looks the same. When you draw a picture of a human, it looks like anything. The reason is, if you take this being here and you breed it with a Homo sapien, everything on this is completely different to everything on that. You put the two together and you have the potential to make endless combinations of, well, not so much a forehead on that one, but eventually a forehead turns up, but not on them. And we've seen 4 of them, and all of them have foreheads that run completely backwards and run down. So that is the answer to the question. Now, the other question we started to think about is why is it there's so many hominins? And why do they look so different from one another? Not so much that the Homo sapiens look different from each other, but why do they look so different from each other? So some have chins, some don't have chins, some have big brains. In fact, Homo sapiens sapiens come 5th behind the one we've shown you, Denisovans, Neanderthal, Homo heidelbergensis, and now this new one. In fact, that's 6th. We sit behind all of them. We were not the smartest hominid in the block. So that person at the start who said, oh, we wiped the rest out. I've got 3 articles there where the academics all say the same thing. The whole human history has to be reevaluated and rewritten. That is a common conclusion in, 4 of those 7 papers. They come up by saying, we don't know anything. One person used it like this. It is not a tree of evolution. It's a densely clustered bush with branches running everywhere, and they all come from the same root, the same base. Now, ladies and gentlemen, the out of Africa theory tells us that they got here 60,000 years ago, and of course we cover that one too. We've got a paper there where they say the date is 130,000 years. Have a look at that and you'll find that that date is wrong. The date when they entered here is wrong by at least 100, 300, 400, 700% wrong. The date that Homo sapiens came together, even 10 years ago, is wrong by a factor of 3. The place they came out of, where did hominids begin? They say Africa. The oldest hominin found in the world is in Siberia, nearly 10 million years old. There are 2 species of hominin found in Bulgaria and Greece that are over 7 million years old. The oldest hominin found in Africa is 4 million years old. And by the way, Siberia doesn't have monkeys. So how can you say that it begins in Africa when there are dates that are 3 to 6 million years older in Europe and Siberia, near Russia, near Asia? How can you make that statement? You can't, because it's wrong. So the answer to this is, why do we all have different faces, and why have we turned out so differently? I know that they've genetically they've hybridized the Homo sapiens. Whether each of these other sapiens is a creation of theirs or a natural thing, I don't know which way on those two. I can't say. It's one or the other. But when it comes to sapiens, it's just one. In our genes, our hominin genes, and then a face gene that makes us all differently, and a body gene that makes us all differently, and a digestion gene that means someone can eat just pure meat, someone can eat fruit. Some people are vegan, some people are vegetarian, some people are all different shades, and we all eat it and we still all manage. How does that work? Because no other animal could do that. Try that for another animal. Try and give a cow meat and see what happens. They'll die. Try and give a dog chocolate and what'll happen is they'll die. We can eat anything. Well, how come? All other animals eat one type of diet and they all share that diet. We are different because there's another part of the reservoir of our genetic pool that we've never factored in. We keep looking at monkeys. We keep looking at other hominids for where that comes from. We keep looking to the ground. We should be looking to the sky. We should be looking to where the 7 sisters come from. When the Egyptians would talk about the Syrians, and we should look at that because there's the extra part of this equation. Our argument is that all of these papers are fundamentally flawed. Even this last one, they're fundamentally flawed because they leave one part out of the equation. When they're trying to find out where humans come from, they keep looking on this planet until they look upstairs and look outside and find the other part of the equation that explains why we are not like any other species on this planet. We are not one model. We're a dog's breakfast, a genetic dog's breakfast of hominin. I'm obviously got Denisovan, I've got Neanderthal. We all have, except the Africans, of course. The ones who were the first, they don't have any Neanderthal. Even though the Neanderthals are supposed to come out from Africa, they've got none, and they've got no Denisovan. But they're supposed to be the oldest race. No, it's all wrong. And you know what? It's not my opinion. It's the opinion of more than half the people who wrote these papers. What they kept saying is, all the models of the past are wrong. We've got to do it again. But you go into the schools and go into the universities and find out what they're teaching. They're not teaching the fact that all of the theories of how humans came about are wrong. And what it comes down to this, ladies and gentlemen, is very simply this. If we do this properly and we look at the evidence, we're not earthly residents. We're actually galactic citizens, and we've got to start to get our head around that. So, ladies and gentlemen, if you've got the time, I've got a small short story there, nearly 7,500 words. Had to get all the proof in. There's about 85 quotes from respected reports of papers or the papers themselves. And the parts we take out are quotations if it's a report that came from the paper. We only use that. We don't use the comment of the person who's the interlocutor. We go to the source they primarily quoted from, and we use that as our base. And what we found is the answer lies in Australia, but it also lies in the Pleiades and everywhere else up there. So have a look at that paper if you can, please, ladies and gentlemen. And of course, we do have one conference which we've just put up, which is up at the moment, and that's really looking at that alien presence in some detail. And the next one we're about to do, where we're going to go, well, I am anyway, we're going back on the country and we're doing archaeology, and I'll talk about some of this stuff today, and we'll talk about some of the massive stone arrangements in Australia. And we have people in Charles Cos and some others doing that. And Leah will be doing her second session on channeling Mesref, an alien from the other side. So we still are going to cover that, but that'll be mainly Leah's session. Ours will be more archaeological, and that will satisfy quite a few critics who keep saying, why are we doing this UFO stuff? Shouldn't we be doing the proper science we're doing before? My answer to that is we do it because we don't have a choice. That's what we're told to do. But now we're having a pause, so I'm going to do 7 papers, make people happy and get very academic and prove to you that it all began in Australia. And by the way, the original Pleiadians and all of those skeletons I've found, ones we've found, they are original. They come from Australia. They're part of the dreaming. So ladies and gentlemen, enjoy the article if you've got the courage to read it all. Or if not, come to the next conference we're doing, or the one we have done. And I think we're doing a talk with someone else on, I think it's Monday, but that'll be about UFOs again and what happened to Uluru. For now, thank you for listening, and until next time, all the best in these somewhat unusual days.